Hey guys, and welcome to our 99th episode of EduAllStars. My name is Todd Nesloni, and you can find me on Twitter at TechNinjaTodd.
My name is Chris Kessler. You can find me on Twitter at IamKessler. Just want to welcome everyone back to the podcast. You're in the middle of summer. I hope that's an amazing experience. I know it is for me. This week's podcast is sponsored by Miami Device. This is the premier EdTech conference in the nation, featuring many of the guests that we've had on our show. And you can find more about this can't-miss opportunity by visiting miamidevice.org. You can sign up today for their conference that's coming up in November.
And as you listen to this week's episode, we encourage you to tweet out using the hashtag EduAllStars. We love seeing the conversation and hearing about all the things that stick out to you. We're really excited about this week's guest. This week we have Nicholas Ferroni, who is a former actor turned high school educator. He was named one of the 100 most influential people in America, People Magazine's Sexiest Teacher Alive, and Men's Fitness Magazine's 25 Fittest Men in the World. He also writes for the Huffington Post, is developing 2 history show pilots, and working on a new book called The Awkward Album. Thanks, Nick, for coming on with us today.
Thank you very much, and thanks for ending with the two recognitions that I enjoy the least. I feel the most uncomfortable hearing.
I can only imagine. Well, Nick, let's just kind of start with just hearing a little bit about you and kind of how you ended up in education.
Well, I heard teaching was such an easy job, and that anybody could do it, and I'm kidding. I mean, the truth is, and the joke I always tell people, I always wanted to be a teacher. Like, even from a little kid, I wanted to be Indiana Jones. That was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a history teacher.
Right.
Now, I do feel more like kindergarten cop on a daily basis, so growing up, but I've always had an appreciation for history. Both my grandfathers fought in World War I. We spent weeks talking about history, its importance, and why we should embrace it. I ended up going to college to play football at Rutgers. And I didn't take education courses, but I was a history major. So after college, in the process of going through my alternate route program, which we have in New Jersey, where if you don't go to college to be an educator, you can actually take classes that the school district will pay for. I ended up doing a little bit of modeling, and I ended up booking a pretty big campaign. And from that campaign, a casting director from a soap opera saw me. And, of course, he asked me the one important question that they ask everyone is, have you ever acted before? And my honest answer was, I've lied to plenty of girls and my parents in my life and gotten away with it. So yeah, I think I could act. So I ended up doing the soap for about 2 years, and they actually offered me a recurring role. At the same time, I was subbing in my old high school. So I was doing the show and subbing in my old high school, which they thought was the coolest thing ever. But a teaching job opened up. So I came across the crossroad. Do I continue to be an actor or try to act and do something that I'm not good at, nor was I passionate about, or nor would I care about? Or do I take the road as an educator, teach history, do something I love, deal with kids on a daily basis, and actually have a profound impact on the world? And I obviously chose the least profitable, least appreciative, and the one thing I always wanted to do, and I became a high school history teacher.
What age level kids do you teach in high school?
I've taught freshmen, sophomores, world history, and US 1. I'm currently just teaching US 1.
Okay. And
it's funny, and I always tell my friends, acting, anybody who thinks they're a good actor, they should stand in front of a bunch of students for 40 minutes.
Yep.
We put on 6 shows a day. And it's funny, I always joke, like, second period, I test out my material. So if a joke works, you'll keep it in the routine. If it doesn't, you kind of nix it. So we basically put on 6 shows a day. And the difference is our job is we have to convince our students that they want to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with those high school kids, they can smell your BS a mile away, I'm sure.
Oh, my God. You literally have to – it's the best practice for entertainment you could ever do.
Sure, absolutely.
And I always say it's funny. The messenger is so much more important than the message, because we've probably all had amazing teachers who were talking about very interesting topics, but their delivery just made it seem like the most boring, irrelevant topic.
Yeah.
And then we have great teachers who could talk about things we hate, but they do it in such a way where it inspires us and empowers us.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the Huffington Post thing. How did that come about, and what is that like to write for them?
I mean, it's not as it's not as limited as you think. I mean, it's a great honor. At the same time, I'm a history teacher, and I do have to be honest. I have one of my friends who's an English teacher edit every blog, edit everything I do, and I'm definitely great at concepts, but I definitely need a good 2 or 3 run-throughs before writing a blog or writing an article.
Sure.
But I've used it as a great opportunity to empower my students by giving them a platform. So I have them write topics and I have them discuss topics, and then I post it through them. So that way it gives them, I mean, an article we did, what makes a great teacher, about their thoughts. I mean, it was shared like 30,000 times. And it was, to me, it was such an empowering thing for them.
So what are some of your favorite things to write about, or what has been one of your biggest things to write about that you enjoy the most?
Definitely focusing on the whole child, on how, I mean, obviously going against education policies and how they're forcing us to care more about kids' test scores than kids, which is the counterproductive nature of education. But more importantly, to embrace and get kids to embrace their own abilities, but to make sure that they enter the classroom with their physical needs being met. Meaning, again, very simple, we put Maslow ahead of Bloom's in a sense. And just getting teachers to kind of, I mean, again, teachers, we follow rules, and so many of us are concerned about our jobs, but that forces us to lose the feelings and emotions that led us to the teaching career in the first place. So I love to focus on how important the arts are, how important the whole child is, and just to kind of, my thing is, I just want to constantly praise educators, because we get demonized so much, where every chance I get, I just want to remind, I mean, you, obviously, Todd and Chris and everyone out there, there's so many amazing educators out there, and they need to hear it daily. We should celebrate them like celebrities.
Right.
And it's because they are, because they're, when it comes down to it, they're basically the last bastion of hope for most children in this country and the world.
Nick, what city are you in? We didn't mention that.
I'm in Union Township.
Okay.
Which is central New Jersey.
Cool.
So I'm interested in these history show pilots that you're developing. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about that?
I can't really go into too much detail.
I figured.
Yeah. Just because, God forbid, somebody's watching on another network and it's like,
they're going to take it.
Idea. Yeah, but I mean, it's funny. I would never, after People Magazine, I received a lot of show offers to do different shows. Some horrible and some pretty entertaining. But I was always under the impression where I originally turned down shows and films when I just started teaching because I wanted to be a teacher, obviously. Now I'm in a position where I can actually do a project that is education related, and at the same time give me a larger platform to, as if People Magazine didn't give me a big enough platform to begin with, but just to kind of continue to use what I have to go in the media and celebrate educators and let people know the truth of what's going on in education policy and how it's affecting us and what it's forcing teachers to do on a daily basis.
Well, you know, I like that you talk about celebrating teachers, but one thing I also really enjoyed is I follow a lot of your posts on Instagram, and recently you were able to take a couple students to, was it a museum or an art gallery, or what was it?
Well, I took a few, we took a group of students last week to People Magazine, and they got
right. That's what it was.
Actually got to sit in on a magazine, obviously completely confidential. They couldn't tweet about it or share it. But we exposed some of our phenomenal journalism students to an actual People Magazine meeting.
But I love that you have those opportunities to not. I mean, you could have easily just shown up to that yourself and took notes and brought it back to your kids. But the fact that you're able to bring those students, I mean, those are things they'll never forget.
I have students who want to be musicians. Last year, I took a handful of them to go with Maxwell, the R&B singer, to hang out in the studio. They sang with them. They played. I mean, and to me, it's like, those, like you said, those experiences will matter most in high school. I mean, one of my best friends, Harry Josh, is one of the biggest celebrity hairstylists in the world. And again, I teach history. So these don't affect me in any way, but I begged and pleaded, and he willingly came down and talked to our cosmetology program, shared his story, talked, and it's like, it's those, and I was joking with my principal, I'm like, how many schools can say they had one of the biggest celebrity hairstylists, that their students sang with Maxwell, that Miss Teen USA came over to our school 2 weeks ago to talk about self-esteem and body image and stuff like that. So my kids have it good, but those are the experiences, and as good of a relationship we have with our kids, they listen to us. There's a point where we become like their parents, where they have to hear it from somebody else.
Right.
But it's like, my mentality is, I deal with such amazing kids, and it's just, I want to put them in the best position to do what they want to do and do what they're good at. I mean, I have an art student in history now. She draws a picture for each chapter. That's what she does.
Cool.
I have a student who raps. He writes raps for each chapter. He's working on his music. He's memorizing material, and he's contributing to the class. And it's funny because to them, they don't feel like they're working, but that's why I love what I do, because it allows me to be creative in that sense.
Very cool. So tell us a little about the Awkward album. I don't have a clue what this is about.
All right. Every year I go in the class, and especially after People Magazine more so than anything else, like my students know I did the soap, they know I acted, they know I modeled, so they Google me and they see all this stuff and they think it's really cool. So the first day of school, I always come in and I tell them the story. I'm like, what do you hear about me? We heard you did this, we saw this, and then I said, well, you didn't hear my real story. I'm like, what do you mean? I show a picture of myself when I was in 8th grade, or when I was 8 years old, worst haircut, and then I tell them how I was rejected by every single girl. And then I tell them how I glued my ears to my head because I was told that I was called Dumbo, big ears, all this stuff. They start laughing and but to me, it was a way for me to humanize myself. I then have them bring in a picture of themselves when they felt the most awkward and share a story. The irony is some of them it's that very moment because that's when they're going through puberty. But to me, it's you can't ban bullying from schools. All you could do is empower kids to the need where they're so comfortable in their own skin where they don't need to bully each other, and that they're so comfortable in their own skin where if somebody does say something, it doesn't affect them because we all go through it. So what I did is I took it to the next level where I asked some of my celebrity friends to share an awkward childhood photo and share a story about feeling insecure, being bullied, and then share all the names that they were called as kids, to show kids that, yes, even George Clooney at 12 years old thought he was the ugliest kid in the world and couldn't do this and do that. But it's just, to me, it's a way to show that, 'cause every kid thinks they're going through stuff by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But this was my way of, because you can't, we know, history shows us, banning something only makes it worse.
Yeah.
It just criminalizes an act. So we have to go to the root. We have to empower kids. And we have to make sure that they're so confident, girls are so confident, that they don't have to exploit themselves or be bullied or let it get to them or get under their skin, so to say.
So what is one of your favorite lessons or activities that you do in your classroom with your kids?
I honestly have to say one of my favorite is always historical charades. We do historical charades in class where they have a list of keywords and we split up in groups and they have to do charades. And it's, my logic is very simple. It teaches them incredible social skills. It forces them to think outside the box. It makes them more interactive, and it makes it more memorable because they have to understand the topic in order to perform the task.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have my students, if you follow me, I have them tweet their notes. They do historical tweets where they tweet the information using a hashtag emojis. And again, they condense the information into 140 characters, which therefore makes them memorize it. We're doing a historical soundtrack activity tomorrow, which I think every teacher should use in class, where we study an event and I have them match a song, a contemporary song, to that event, and then they have to explain why. And because now everyone has an attachment to music, and there's no real wrong answer as long as they could explain it. And it's so funny because, like, I have a student who I had 10 years ago. Every time I see him, he says, Mr. Ferroni, you know, whenever I hear that song Move Blank by Ludacris, I think of Manifest Destiny because we discussed in class and we were moving westward. It was God's divine. And he recites all the information. But it's stuff like, I just like to find out what they like to do and find a way to incorporate it in class.
Very cool.
I tried Yo Mama jokes even one year, which we had to stop doing them. We had to stop doing Yo Mama historical jokes because they took it a little too seriously.
Yeah, I can only imagine trying that with my 8th graders. So you speak a lot about servicing all children, including minorities, the LGBT community. Like, when did that become a passion for you?
Well, and it's funny because there's a meme going around right now that's going viral, that's getting a lot of criticism. Because I always give this speech when everyone asks me why I'm such a big advocate for LGBT youth, because I say because I was born a sinner too. My sins mentioned in the Bible numerous times, but luckily society learned to accept left-handed people for what we really are.
I'm a lefty.
Are you a lefty?
Yeah.
But it's funny because this meme, somebody made a meme out of it, and it's been shared over like 1 million times, and I'm getting all these critics saying, where in the Bible does it say that being lefty is a sin? It doesn't. And I said, no, it says 58 verses that the right hand of God is the righteous hand. So that for people throughout history have said that's a sin. And it's so funny, but at the same time, it's like something like that. But I do, even studying history books, one of my major goals in my campaigns is a Teach the Truth campaign where I want to revise historical textbooks to include my more minority groups, including African Americans, women, Latino, Muslim, Jewish, and people of different cultures, because I really do believe we indirectly teach kids to be sexist, racist, and discriminate because we put it this way, for every 10 white Christian males, we teach about one minority. So we basically, and again, I'm white. I'm a white Christian. Like, I love that. But at the same time, we give girls the impression that women have done nothing in history.
Right.
We give African-American kids that we talk about the same 5 or 6 people. Like, we should get rid of Black History Month, Women's History Month, LGBT History Month, and then include these figures. Because when kids learn about them, when girls learn about girls doing more, they're more empowered. When guys learn that girls did more, they'll be less likely to view girls as inferior. So it's funny. I was such a jock, but I feel like academic and education can solve every single world problem.
Chris, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What's something you're really proud of accomplishing recently?
Recently, you mean excluding People Magazine and stuff?
Yeah. We'll exclude that one.
I mean, I would say recently, it's just one of my former students who I haven't seen for probably 5 years came back to school just to thank me. And this was a kid who I thought hated me. And every day, it's literally, I was like, so how you doing? My goal every day was to get him to laugh and to smile, because he was he just was very cold and stoic. And he came back to say hi to me, and we started talking, and I would joke around. I'm like, I honestly thought you hated me. And he said, but he explained why. He said, I just hated him. He said, I hated my life. And he said, coming to your class was the only time I ever laughed, because he came from a very troubled background. He's going to college now. He's in his 3rd year of school. Wow. And he just said how much that meant to him. And it was funny. It's like sometimes the kids we think hate us the most because they battle us actually love us the most for that same reason.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I'll never and they always say you can't save every kid, but we should still try.
Yeah.
I'll never give up on a kid. I mean, they're obviously a kid that behaves that way is like that way for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just having this conversation this week and on my campus. At the end of the year, every year, it's those kids that gave you the biggest problems all year long, and at the end of the year, they're like, man, I love you. You're my favorite teacher. I'm going to miss you so much. You're like, what? What are you talking about?
I'm sure you're being the same boat, but I mean, my parents are amazing. I mean, they're the most supportive people in the world, but my kindergarten teacher, Miss Martino, this woman saved my life. I mean, every day, and she did it with me and every other kid. My 5th grade history teacher, I mean, they were such great people and so encouraging. And I was joking, I still talk to my kindergarten teacher, and I was joking with her, and I said, I couldn't have imagined how I'd be right now if your salary depended on a test score, because I was the most emotionally needy, unstable kid there was. And I can only imagine her having to walk in the classroom and say, you know what, I can't hug you, I can't be nice to you, I need you to study right now so I do well, so I get paid. And it's like, I can't even comprehend that, an educator having to do that.
So who inspired you the most when you were growing up?
Outside of Indiana Jones, a fictional character on TV?
Sure.
I mean, I got to say, my mom, I always joke, I say, my dad showed me what a man does, my mom taught me how to be a man. And my mom taught me compassion. My kindergarten teacher, Miss Martino, she had me believing one day I was going to be either president or one of the next greatest artists in the world. And I believed her. And it's like, that just empowered me so much. And that's why I think encouragement is so powerful. And I always say, if you think words aren't powerful, then you've never been given words of encouragement. So it's like, I mean, educators, like, I always overestimate my kids' abilities. And I'm like, you're going to be great. You're going to do great things. 2 things could happen. They don't achieve it, or they believe it and then start achieving it. Yeah. So I've just had so many positive role models, history, life, I mean, mentors who went above and beyond. And to me, I feel like I saw how it affected me, so I'm trying to relay that same message and carry the torch for other people.
Right.
What's something you're reading right now, or maybe have read in the last year or so that helped you out through your educational career?
Ooh, that helped me out through my education.
Or anything that you're reading that you're kind of high on right now. Or are you reading? Or do you know how to read?
I'm doing so many. The history show I'm working on so much. The last 6 books I've read have all been haunted histories and historical myths and mysteries. So there's not been a lot of educational focus on that.
Perfect.
I mean, I'm probably, and the irony is, and I'm sure many of you fall in this case, I've probably read the equivalent of 1,000 books in the last 2 weeks, but in blog form.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
And that's it. So I wish, I mean, I am still a traditional book person. I need my hand, but I see so many great articles and elaborate from there and build upon there rather than,
Yeah.
I haven't read one or two books, I would say, in the last 2 months that have focused solely on education, but I probably read 1,000 blogs
Yeah.
about different educational techniques and methods and different things. And the funny thing is, the one thing I've learned is the general message is kids are the same throughout the country.
Sure.
Their basic needs have to be met before you can teach them.
Yep.
You know, that's why I say if a kid knows you care about them, they'll do anything for you. But why should a kid care about learning if he doesn't think his teacher cares about him or her, you know?
Yep. Completely agree. So, Nick, when you're having one of those really rough days, what do you do kind of to recenter yourself?
I was having that talk with myself today when I'm leaving. So I've been battling with a few students, and it's been battling, and it's there, as an educator, you always come to the point where you feel like, you know, you're fed up to the point where I'm like, I'm done with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I always joke, I'm like, every day I leave the job feeling the same way. I'm mentally and physically drained, and some kids could be so ungrateful. And then I get home and I take a deep breath, and then like you, I smile and I say, and I can't wait to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where, I mean, I have such kids that are so rough and so battle. And the one thing I always tell myself, which it's funny, my kindergarten teacher gave me great advice. She said two things. She said, a lot of times your students will never remember what you taught them, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the second thing, don't ever take it personally.
Yeah.
Meaning, if a student's acting out that way, it's not you. There's
Right.
other deeper issues. And it's like, I always try to see it from that perspective. I mean, like there was one video they had in New Jersey of the kid who jumped the teacher and was beating up the teacher, which is a criminal act, which the kid should be punished. But the sad reality is my first thought was, what had to be going through that kid's mind for a kid to even do that?
Right.
Like, what home were they coming from? What support do they have? And it's like, if a kid is like that at 13, they've had a lot of help getting to that point.
Definitely. What about, like, if you could go back to see yourself as a first-year teacher, what kind of advice would you give yourself knowing kind of what you know now?
Oh, my God, that's a great question. I would say classroom management first. Because my first year, which was a blur, I remember going in there, I'm like, I'm so smart, I know all this stuff, I can't wait to share this information, when I was so much more about being a teacher than an educator. Meaning, I said, if you could manage a classroom, you can manage anything. I've met a lot of brilliant people who were horrible teachers because they didn't know the basic necessities of classroom management, and they didn't know how to deliver the message or relate it to find a way to connect it to the students.
Right.
So my first year I had my stack of notes. I was your traditional college professor in a high school, and it kind of it was a nightmare because I went in there with this mindset. So my first line of or my first advice to first year students would be, get to know the students first, establish a great class climate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd rather spend a week or two getting to know my students, developing a class climate with rules and guidelines, than to worry about that as it goes. Because, I mean,
Yep.
to me, it saves you a year-long headache.
Yep, because you're battling it all year if you don't get it right away.
Absolutely, and it's to me, it's the foundation of every good relationship with an educator. And it's the argument is, you know, they say don't show your teeth. Your students don't have to like you. They don't. You want them to, but you also want them to respect you enough to know that, you know what, they're really doing what's best for me. They're not here for a paycheck.
Right.
Like they're just not here to give me work. Like they really care and they're vested in this.
Well, Nick, one of the questions that we always love to end on with our guests is, what is something that you're really passionate about right now?
Right now, and I have to say it again, I'm launching a Straight Teachers for Gay Students campaign because at my school, unfortunately, we had a student who took her life, and a few months ago, another student took their life because they were being bullied for being gay. And to me, it's one of those things where we have to support all our students. And when a student knows that their teacher supports them, that could change their whole thing. And I always say, so many students come to school for much more than an education, and they do. And my goal and what I like to do is I want every student in my class to know that I think they can do great things and I care about them. And not only that I care about them, but I'll proudly be outspoken supportive of them.
Right.
You know, I come across a lot of teachers who say, you know, well, it's not my place to bring up political issues, and I say, no, you're an educator. Your place is to support all your students, because I only think about how many students we have who are going through depression, who are dealing with certain issues, not only being LGBT, but anything, and that we don't speak about it, but by not speaking about it, we don't help it.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like Martin Luther King. He says, you will not remember the words of your enemy, but the silence of your friends.
Definitely.
So I mean, teachers just to support all their students and know that being a teenager is tougher now than ever before. And there's so many kids who come to school because they know that you love them and you care about them, and they need that.
Yeah. Well, Nick, man, it was great to get to talk to you tonight. How can listeners connect with you?
Okay. Well, I have my Twitter at Nicholas Ferroni. I have my teacher page on Facebook. It's Nicholas Ferroni as well. My email should be on there as well. I mean, if they Google Nicholas Ferroni, they could see some of the various topics I write about for Huffington Post. They're not all serious. I mean, I do a lot of history, fun history, clever stuff, how the Declaration of Independence was the greatest breakup letter in history, how to use music in the classroom, why the Founding Fathers wanted a nation built on the arts and not anything else. So there's a lot of interesting topics that I like to cover, just to kind of connect with students as well as adults.
Cool. And you can connect with us on all those various social media platforms as well. Just search out EduAllStars. You can also Google EduAllStars and find our website with all the previous 99 episodes. We're down to 100 coming up next week.
I can't wait to see who the 100th guest is.
We can't wait to see who it is.
And join us for our next, like Chris just said, join us for our next episode as we celebrate 99, and it'll be our 100th next time with some great surprises for y'all. So thanks again, Nick, for coming on with us. We really appreciate it. And guests, don't forget to check out Miami Device by visiting miamidevice.org. Thanks again, Nick.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
Take care.